Hey, my friend, welcome back. It's Hicks. I really appreciate you being here with me today. I wanted to share with you a couple thoughts on how it is that your mind ends up actually sabotaging you. And I know you know what I'm talking about here. For instance, you're going through your day, you're trying to make something happen, and then all of a sudden that self-doubt creeps in. That little voice inside your head starts questioning your decisions, starts causing you to overthink things. For those of you who are experiencing real problems with anxiety, you know this especially well because it ends up creating an experience of life where you're unable to make a single decision without overthinking things, overanalyzing, ending up being in a spot where you're perpetually stuck. You feel like you're always in a place where you're never going to be able to get real resolve inside of your body and be able to turn things around and be able to actually move your life forward and do something productive. That becomes a really, really frustrating experience, and it wears you out over time because you feel like you're expending all this energy to the point that you're exhausted. You're essentially going in circles. You're not making any progress in your life, but you perpetually feel like you're exhausted and you just don't know how you get out of this. That's the worst part, is that you just feel stuck. You're like, how the hell am I actually going to turn things around? And the more stressed you get, the more that piles on top of the stress you're already experiencing. And then the deeper the spiral goes, okay? And then eventually, especially for individuals with real anxiety problems, you can end up getting into a place where you're having anxiety attacks, panic attacks, even heart attacks, right? And if you're experiencing depression as your particular form of suffering, that's where you can get to really, really dark places in the mind, such as suicidal tendencies and some other really unfortunate situations. So we don't want that for you at all. And I want to help you understand at least a portion of why it is that these problems are surfacing for you, particularly if you're dealing with depression or anxiety as well. And the key thing that I want to share with you today is that you need to become aware of that internal voice inside of your head. This is what I like to call your inner roommate, or you might also hear me refer to it as your inner critic, because that's what it engages in very often, is just criticism. Now, here's the interesting thing about that voice inside your head. I want you to listen for it really quickly right now. So go ahead and just, hear yourself say the word hello. Okay, so do you hear it? It's there, right? So you can see it at any time. You can hear it at any time. Its presence is always there. Now, the really difficult thing for you, though, is when you're actually trying to engage in making decisions, when you're actually trying to engage in any sort of form of life, when you're trying to move your life forward in any particular way, particularly when you have to make decisions, it becomes really problematic for you because that little voice creeps in automatically. It starts to measure and weigh all of the different pros and cons of your options. It overthinks things, it argues with itself. And honestly, the thing for you to understand, first of all, is that there is no part of that internal voice that is ever going to be stronger or more correct or smarter than any other part of it. In fact, all it really wants to be able to do is keep on talking. That's all it does. It never shuts up. It's always just trying to keep this constant noise and internal chatter going. And so what you end up doing is causing yourself a lot of added strife. It doesn't help you at all. That voice is the representation of everything that is encapsulated by your fear, by your anxiety, about what you don't want to manifest in your life. It is what is produced by that part of your brain that I call the reptile brain, the part of your brain that evolved to keep you alive, the part of your brain that was on guard for our ancestors when there was rustling behind the bushes and told us, get the hell out of here, right? So that internal voice is always guided by what you're afraid of, and it's trying to keep you alive, but in its pursuit to try to keep you alive, it makes everything in your world seem like a saber-toothed tiger, causes you to feel anxious about it, causes you to run away from it, and ensures that you experience no lasting peace of mind. Sound familiar? So this pattern is one I'm intimately familiar with, and it's one that you have to be able to interrupt. Now, you have to essentially be able to create the antidote to this constant, persistent anxiety of the inner roommate talking to itself. The antidote for this is creating a state of lasting presence. Presence meaning the experience of being able to navigate life without having to narrate life. The ability to go through your days being completely mindful of what you're doing, being able to simply be aware of the fact that you are aware, not engaging in activities where you're constantly second guessing and assessing and labeling and running everything that you're experiencing through this constant rigmarole of conscious thoughts. It's just not necessary. It's not useful for you. Now, at this point, you might be thinking, Ty, what the hell are you talking about? Like, if that voice wasn't there, what would be there? You know, where would I be? Well, here's a quick little experiment for you, okay? Inside of your mind, say this sentence. I wonder what my next thought will be. And then just pause there for a moment. I wonder what my next thought will be. See, you didn't vaporize. You didn't disappear. You're still there. You are not the equivalent of the voice inside your head. You're actually the equivalent of the ever-present conscious awareness of what's happening around you. And that awareness can exist independent of internal narration of what you experience. And that understanding is the very beginning of the doorway to any sort of psychological and spiritual freedom that you want to experience. Because that internal voice creates a layer between you, your actual awareness, and the experience of the world. That layer of the internal voice is the part of you that's trying to make sense of the world by holding it together, but really all it's really trying to do is hold you together by getting to consistently keep on talking. So you gotta start paying attention to those moments of sacred silence. You gotta start recognizing you don't need that voice to be engaged in internal chatter. That voice is not you. And in fact, if that internal voice were somebody next to you, following you through your entire day, you would not take that person's advice at all, because they would appear to you to be the most crazy, unhinged, unwell-adjusted, psychotic individuals in the entire world, right? Think about it. If your voice were an actual human being talking to you throughout the day, as opposed to just being inside of your head, you would never consult that individual for financial, relationship, or career advice, ever. You would never let them make decisions for you at all, because you'd know that they would be completely unhinged and no decision that they would ever make would be the right decision for you. So my question is, why is it that that is the very source from which you do make your decisions? Why is it that that is the very source from which you expend your emotional energy? Why is it that that is the place from which you derive your sense of identity? It's not you, my friend. So start to separate between yourself and your internal roommate. And you're going to start to see a very profound opening that has no end. And that is the access to this ultimately vast resource, this deep ocean that's called your subconscious mind. They will enable you to pull out any emotional resource that you want at any given time. They will enable you to be able to pierce through the noise inside of your head and get down to what's real, and get down to the way of living in which you're living from your heart, not from your head. I know it's easier said than done. It takes practice. It takes very simple strategies. If you want to know how to accelerate that process, if you want to know the simple daily disciplines you need to make this happen, reach out to us, send us an email, schedule a call with me or my team, and we'd love to have that conversation with you. We've got tons of resources, strategies, and opportunities to make sure that you can make this a truly daily experience of life. And your entire experience of life will transform when you actually make this the automatic, conditioned place from which you actually live. So go out there, make this happen, take some action with this idea immediately. Don't just let it sit there. Do something to keep the ball moving forward for yourself. I hope that we can be a part of that process for you. Please reach out, let us know how we can help. Until then, I can't wait to talk to you again soon.